Welcome back to the channel. We're back with our Baldur's Gate Commander, today with one of the first companions from Baldur's Gate 3, Astarion the Decedant. For 4, a white and a black, you get a 4/4 Death Touch and Lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, choose one. You either feed a target opponent loses life equal to the amount of life they lost this turn, or friends, you gain life equal to the amount of life if you gain this turn. So we have plenty of ways to make sure we're gaining life in order to double up that life gain with the friends ability in order to then, maybe use an Aetherflux Reservoir, or your opponent loses life equal to the amount of life you gain this turn type effects, in order to potentially combo off on them, in order to have a lot of fun making friends, as one may say. But that's just a general overview of the deck. Let's get into it card by card and see just how many infinite combos we have. We have Aetherflux Reservoir, probably one of our win cons on this deck. You pay 50 life, deal 50 damage to target creature or player, but whenever you cast a spell, gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. 1 for the first one, 2 for the second one. So if you just cast 2 spells every turn, you gain that 3. Then you're up by 6 based on Astarion's ability alone. And then you swing with Astarion, you're already at 50 life. Look how far you've come. You already have enough to eliminate one person from the game, along with yourself. Alhammar's Archive, 5 mana. If you gain life, gain twice that much life instead. If you draw a card except the one during your draw step, you draw 2 instead. So, we're now gaining 6 off of Aetherflux Reservoir, right? Yep. 6 off just the 2 casts with that spell, and then we're gaining 12 more. So we're already at 18 life that we gain just based on these 3 cards alone. Super fun abilities there. We have plenty of ways to make sure we're doubling up that life gain. Like I said, there's plenty of cards in the deck that say when when you gain life, your opponent loses that much life. And whenever your opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So, maybe we have a 1 or 2 infinite combos with those guys. So doubling up makes it so we deal double that damage as well, is what I'm trying to say. Arcane Signet for some additional mana. Bolsa Citadel, we're going to be gaining plenty of life. We're going to have plenty of life to spare. So, may as well go digging through the top cards of our deck until, of course, we run into 2 lands during the same turn, because you play a land off the top of your deck. Once you hit that second land, though, you're stopped in your tracks. Other than that, though, you are basically paying life to cast all of your spells until either you run out of life or your opponents do. Caduceus, Staff of Hermes, Enchanted Creature's Lifelink are... equipped creature. As long as you have 30 or more life, the equipped creature has +5/+5 indestructible, and prevent all damage will be dealt to this creature. Potentially having us so that we could make Astarion even stronger, give him that little bit layer protection. Normally we're going to equip to one of our other creatures, though, in order to give them that lifelink ability on top of everything. When we do the feed ability, that isn't Astarion dealing damage to our opponent, so we don't gain the life off of that if he has lifelink, is the only thing. Would be really cool if he did, but nope. Lightning Grease, in order to give that little bit of layer protection there on Astarion, along with making sure he gets attacked the turn he comes in for that Death Touch lifelink, we want to make sure we can swing in with that. And also, like, some of our other creatures may want the protection as well. Quietest Spike, equipped creature has Death Touch. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. So, if we manage to deal combat damage to one of our opponents, we deal half their life total, and then we could feed. A target opponent loses life equal to the amount of life they lost this turn. So, they already lost half. Now, what is 2 times a half? That's a whole. That's their whole life total. Soul Ring for some additional mana. Shronic Resonator. It will help us basically choose feed or friends again, because you get to copy Astarion's ability. That happens at the beginning of the end step. Tainted Sigil, you gain life equal to the total life lost by all players this turn. If you have your opponents each lose half their life somehow, and they're all at full, that's 60 life being lost. You gain 60 life, and then you use Astarion's ability to gain another 60 at the end of your turn. Just saying, that's a lot of life. That's 2 Aetherflux Reservoirs. Talisman Hierarchy for that additional mana. Wooden Crystal, a little bit of cost reduction for our white spells, a little bit of flying and lifelink for our creatures, but the main ability we're looking for is if you would gain life, gain twice that much life instead, allowing us, to gain even more life, with Astarion's ability. Wayfarer's Bauble for some more mana. And then the Well Lost Dreams for that bit of draw power that we're going to be looking for with this deck. Blood Artist, whenever creature dies, you gain life, each opponent loses life. Oh no, target opponent loses life. For some reason I thought it was each. I'm thinking of Zul port. But yeah, overall, just really good ability, helping you gain that little bit of life. Bloodletter of Alcazats. If an opponent would lose life during your turn, they lose twice that much life instead. So if we did manage to deal, let's say, swinging with Astarion, they lose 8 life that way. Then they lose 16 at their end step. That's 24 damage you're dealing to your opponent just by swinging in with that one creature. And that's assuming that you can't swing in with this or like anything else. Bloodthirsty Conqueror. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So that doesn't necessarily care about you dealing damage to your opponent. That just cares about your opponent's losing life. So it does work there off the feed ability that works together with Bloodletter of Alcazats. We'll be getting into a few creatures shortly that works really well with. Or not even just creatures, just other cards. Creeping Bloodsucker. At the beginning of your upkeep, deal 1 damage to each opponent, aka everyone loses life. You gain life equal to the amount of damage dealt this way. But you're really getting double that if you have Bloodthirsty Conqueror, or double that if you have Wind Crystal. But yeah, overall, just really good ability, helping you gain that bit of life, helping you get that doubled, gaining even more life later on. Defying Bloodlord, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So just saying, whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So you deal a damage, they lose a life, you gain a life. Defiant Bloodlord, you gain a life, they lose a life. And then you keep going a little bit of a cycle. Maybe only like a 7-12 mana infinite combo. Dragon's Emissary. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses a life, you gain a life. A way to make sure you kickstart that combo to make sure you could get that going. Elenda, Saint of Dusk. You're going to be gaining a lot of life, so you're going to have 10 or more life above your starting life total, making her into a 10-10 with Menace, Lifelink, Hexproof, gaining 10 life, meaning that if you have Wind Crystal, you gain 20, then you gain another 40 at the beginning of your end step with Astarion if you had the Wind Crystal as well. All really fun abilities. Enduring Tenacity, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Another part of our Defiant Bloodlord, Bloodthirsty Conqueror type cards to make sure we're getting as many possibilities for that infinite combo as we can. And it comes back as an enchantment even if it gets removed. Grey Merchant Asphodel, a way to make sure we're gaining a lot of life and our opponents are losing a lot of life equal to our devotion to black, which, I don't know, it could be quite a bit. Let's see. Even just based on what we had, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Everyone loses 10 life. You gain 30 life. Then you gain another 30 at your end step thanks to Astarion's effect. Hey, it's worth it. Indulging Patrician, flying lifelink at the beginning of your end step. If you gain 3 or more life this turn, each opponent loses 3 life. No way to burn our opponent. We do need to gain the life not off of Astarion's effect. Well, I mean, you gain it off of his lifelink effect, but you can't gain it off of his friend's effect because you only check for like that status at the beginning of the end step like once. Cabal, Council of Allocation. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. Helping you deal damage, helping you gain some life. This way you can choose feed or friends depending on what you need. Loto, Corrupt Sheriff. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, lose life, create a treasure token. We want as much ramp as possible. We don't necessarily care about taking a little bit of damage, because if we get to use that mana to get into our infinite combo a little bit faster, so be it. Rock's Faithbender, another way to double our life gain. We have a whole bunch of these. We like to see it. Sarah Ascendant, really good card to gain a lot of life. Really like this card in my Hope Esteem deck. Because, it's just a 6/6 with flying and lifelink, turn 1 for 1 mana. No way to get around it normally that early in the game. Unless your opponent has like a Path to Exile. Shoulder of the Apocalypse, whenever you draw a card, gain 2 life. Good source of life gain for us, and a good way to drain our opponents, because whenever they draw a card, they lose 2 life. The Gaffer, normally we're going to be gaining 3 life each turn, so let's get a little bit of draw power while we're at it. Veto, Dorn, Dust Rose, another part of one of those infinite combos if we'd like. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. You just need one of those. Whenever your opponent loses life, you gain that much life. Viz, Copa, Guildmage, target creature gains lifelink. Whenever you gain life this turn, each opponent loses that much life, so now you're not only doing it to yourself, you're doing it to each of your opponents for a piece of that infinite combo. We like to see it. It is like definitely a late game one, so like it is fair and balanced, because like your opponent should have a counter spell up, right? Boon Reflection, if you gain life, gain twice that much life instead. We like gaining life, we like gaining more life, we like gaining even more life. Let's go for it. Player class. Whenever you gain life, put +1/+1 counter on each creature, on target creature you control, or you could revive a creature, or you just gain more life. Normally, you could just go with like the first one and you'll be fine, because then you'll essentially gain 2 off that if Astarion's on board. I like it. Exquisite Blood. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. Probably this plus Sanguine Bond are the most well-known, I'd say, pieces of like this infinite loop. So, I don't know. Just saying. If we have a way to run it, let's run it. Phyrexian Arena, another way to draw a little bit more cards for us. Smothering Tide, to get those treasure tokens, to get our combos out a little bit earlier. And Wound Reflection, at the beginning of each end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life they lost this turn. So if our opponent lost, there's another one like that, Bloodletter of Alcazatz. So say if we just attack with Astarion, our opponent lost 8 life. Now they're losing 16 life. And then 24, 48 more after that. That's a lot of damage we're dealing to our opponent. On to the second half of the deck. For our instance, we have Anguish Unmaking. For removal, Astarion's Durst. For a little bit of +1/+1 counters onto Astarion. Make him gain a little bit more life. Beacon of Immortality, double target player's life total. We don't necessarily have to target ourselves. We could target our opponents if we wanted to. But we're going to target ourselves, because then we gain that much life again. Say if we were still at 40 somehow, when Astarion comes down, then we cast this. That's we gain 40, then we gain 40 more at the beginning of our end step. Dark Ritual for some extra mana, Generous Gift for some removal. He adds Intervention for a little bit of life gain, along with some removal if we need it. Mortify for some removal, Path to Exile for some removal, Revitalize, a little bit of life gain, a little bit of draw power, and Swords to Plowshares for that removal. Sorin, House Markov, normally starts off as a creature with lifelink extort. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, exile this card, return him to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. And he becomes the Planeswalker, where you still keeps the extort ability. You get a food token, or deal damage equal to the amount of life you gain this turn to any target. Which, I don't know, if we're doubling, quadrupling, octupling, I don't know what 16 times is, but I'm sure it's a lot of damage dealing to our opponents is why now. Austere, you're not going to get to the ult. Austere Command for a board wipe. Blood Tribute, target opponent loses half their life total. And you can also gain that life if you kick this spell. Tap it on Tap Vampire, like if you just tap Astarion, because, I don't know, most times you're not swinging with Astarion. You don't necessarily need to. Having him up as a blocker, I think, is more handy. But still, opponent loses half their life. They lose the other half at the end step. Death Grasp. Deal X damage to target creature or player. You gain X life. If we have enough mana to deal half their life soul, there we go. Debt of Deathless. Each opponent loses 2 times X life. You gain life equal to life lost this way. Say if that's even just like 2. You gain 6 life. Double that, 12. Double it again, 24. And then gain that at the end of your turn. But we double that and double it. So it's 24 to 48 to 96. We gained 120 life that turn. I think it's worth it. Exsanguinate. Each opponent loses life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. Just better version of this one. Fumigate. Just another board wipe, but you get to gain life in the process. Kaya's Wrath. Destroy another board wipe. Gain life equal to the number of creatures you control that were destroyed this way. A little bit of life gain, a little bit of board wipe. Knight's Whisper. Some more draw power. Read the Bones for some draw power. Revival and Revenge. Well, double your life total. That one's good. Target opponent loses half their life rounded up. Both of those are good, because you could, I don't know what you choose with Astarion at that point. Depends where you're at in the game. Rush of Dread. Target opponent sacrifices half their creatures. Target opponent discards half their cards, or target opponent loses half their life. Another way to make sure that Astarion's dealing their full life total. Sanctify for a little bit of removal, a little bit of life gain, and Sign in Blood for that draw power. But that's the deck there. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you like the video. If you have other decks that you'd like to see, leave it down there in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.